All right. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the overview of the Tennessee Principal and Supervisor of the Year, Part 1 application webinar. This is the second webinar in the series. I am Sarah Brown. I am the Senior Coordinator of Educator Recognition and Communications. I'm on the Educator Effectiveness team in the Office of Academics. We will go through our new slide, which is the disclaimer for generative AI tools, and I am going to read this one. The state of Tennessee does not currently permit the use of generative AI tools such as Otter in meetings hosted on state resources. Meetings with contractors, vendors, and subrecipients are not public meetings and may involve discussion of protected state data. Generative AI tools are not adequately regulated and are designed to train on data that is collected and may misrepresent data or release protected data to the general public. While the state supports your desire to maintain documentation of the meeting and what you learn, please respect our decision to safeguard information and do not attempt to use tools such as these. If you choose to use a tool such as this, the state will block the tool from the meeting. Okay. Here is our agenda for this meeting. We're going to begin by reviewing the region level selection. We'll then go into part 1 application components, which include the response questions and addressing common missteps. We'll look at the video response questions and best practices, and then supporting documentation and best practices. Towards the end, we'll look at application scoring. And then we will open it up for questions. The Tennessee Principal of the Year program recognizes and honors outstanding school leaders across Tennessee. We applaud principals who demonstrate superior abilities in managing and motivating students and faculties, evoking high standards, demonstrating a commitment to excellence, implementing innovative programs, and having a track record of exceptional gains in student learning. The Tennessee Supervisor of the Year program recognizes and honors outstanding district leaders across Tennessee. We applaud supervisors across all disciplines who demonstrate superior abilities in managing and motivating students and staff, evoking high standards, demonstrating a commitment to excellence, implementing innovative programs, and having a track record of exceptional gains in student learning. This webinar will provide an overview of the Tennessee Principal and Supervisor of the Year application, Part 1. Here are our learning objectives for this webinar. Following the completion of this training, learners will be able to identify the components of Tennessee Principal and Supervisor of the Year Part 1 application, identify best practices for approaching each component. A few session norms. Please remain on mute throughout the session until asked to unmute and share. If you have any questions or comments throughout the presentation, please put them in the chat. With that, let's head to the chat. What is one thing you hope to gain from this session? Supporting evidence, common missteps, application process and clear criteria, review the process to double check we're doing everything correctly. One more about the criteria. And clear expectations of the process and criteria. Fantastic, thank you. All right, so after you've been nominated at the district level, you will complete part 1 of the application, which you're working on right now, by March 24th. To continue to the region level selection process. You can find the Part 1 application on the Tennessee Principal and Supervisor of the Year websites, as well as in the direct email that was sent to you by me. The Part 1 application contains basic information about yourself, your school, 2 written response questions, 1 video response question, and an optional opportunity to submit up to 5 pages of supporting documentation. After all applications are submitted by March 24th, regional scoring committees will identify 1 region level semifinalist in each of the 3 grade bands for each of the 9 regions, for a total of 27 region level semifinalists across the state. All region level applicants will be notified of their application decision in April. All right, so let's dive a little deeper into Part 1 application components. There are 3 main components of the Part 1 application. The first section is basic information, and it is not scored. It includes your demographic information, information about your professional background, school and or district information. Please note that this demographic information will not be shared with the review committee. And the Tennessee Principal and Supervisor of the Year will be selected without regard to race, color, religion, sex, age, or national origin, and will not be discriminated against on the basis of disability. This information is primarily collected for program monitoring and evaluation purposes. The second section, response questions, includes 2 written responses that are limited to 750 words each. We will explore the questions more deeply on the following slide. The third section is 1 video response limited to 5 minutes total. We will also explore this component more deeply later in the presentation. Lastly, the 4th section is optional, supporting documentation. Supporting documentation is permitted to provide additional evidence for references made in your extended responses. Some examples of supporting documentation include student success data, project plans, parent or community communications materials, etc. The supporting documentation is completely optional, and choosing not to submit supporting documentation will not penalize the applicant in any way. If you choose to submit supporting documentation, that documentation is limited to 5 pages maximum. Any documentation over this maximum will not be provided to reviewers. Okay, back to the chat. Which section will not be shared with the reviewing committee? Correct answer is A. Basic information will not be shared with the reviewing committee. Okay, the response questions. Let's look more closely at those. On Part 1 application, applicants will respond to 2 response questions that each have a 750-word limit. The questions are very similar, but differ across programs based on the applicant's role. For Principal of the Year, applicants will respond to the following prompts. How do you strategically engage with community stakeholders to support your school's mission, vision, and goals? And how do you define diversity within your school and community? In this context, what does it mean to have a commitment to diversity as a school leader? How have you applied this commitment in your school and community? And then for Supervisor of the Year, applicants will respond to the following prompts. How do you strategically engage with community stakeholders to support your district's mission, vision, and goals? And then how do you define diversity within your district and community? In this context, what does it mean to have a commitment to diversity as a district leader? How have you applied this commitment in your district and community? The Tennessee Principal and of the Year Guidebook for applicants and the Tennessee Supervisor of the Year Guidebook for applicants included guidance and exemplars to help you craft your Part 1 application, including this checklist of questions to help you address common missteps. Though a strong response may look different for each written response prompt, these guiding questions can help you ensure that the components of your application complement one another and give the most comprehensive view of your excellence as a leader. So ask yourself, much like we would our students, are you answering the question? Take time to unpack the question and think about what is being asked. Create a rough outline of your responses, and then ask someone else to read that response and ask if they can even determine the question being addressed. And then consider, are you answering all parts of the question? So use the unpacking strategy from the guidebook to ensure that you plan for and address all parts of the prompt with sufficient detail. Then consider, are you giving a comprehensive picture of yourself as a leader throughout all of the responses? Try to avoid using the same example or idea in your response to each question. Your goal is to give a complete picture. Think about if you're writing to show what leadership and learning looks like in your school district. Write to show, not to tell. Use examples and stories of things that students, parents, or colleagues have said or done. Show how your work influenced the learning and growth of others through examples and evidence. Highlight your accomplishment rather than being humble about them. We as educators are the worst about it. This is the time to own what you are doing, and tell us about it. Another thing to do is write through the word count in your draft. So oftentimes it takes writers some time to get to the best part of the response. So begin by writing more than you need and then go back and strategically edit to meet that word count. Now let's look more closely at the video response question. On the Part 1 application, applicants will respond to one video response question with a 5-minute time limit. The questions are very similar, but differ across programs based on the applicant's role. So for Principal of the Year, applicants will respond to the prompt, what is the story of your school and what role do you play in that story? And then include evidence to support your response. For the Supervisor of the Year applicants, you will respond to a similar prompt, but in regards to the district level, what is the story of your district and how have you played a role in that story? Include evidence to support your response. Both of the guidebooks include guidance and exemplars to help you craft your Part 1 application. Sorry, as this got all jumbled up over my words, including the checklist of questions to help you address common missteps. Again, think about, are you answering the question? Are you answering all parts of the question? Are you giving a comprehensive picture of yourself as a leader throughout all of your responses? Are you telling a story to show what leadership and learning looks like in your school, in your room, in the district level? Ensure that reviewers have, one thing to make sure to do, and I run into this every single year, is make sure that you give access to your reviewers. So you'll need to go through and put give viewing access through a link. To create a link to your video, consider using YouTube. You can use Google Drive. You can use Dropbox or any kind of similar file sharing website. Set the viewing privacy settings and or permissions to anyone with a link to ensure that reviewers can access your video. And do not, please, do not delete it or move it until you have received a notification from the program coordinator that the scoring has been completed. Please do not have this on your district's SharePoint or network, whatever it is your district uses. Access outside of the district is always blocked. We have trouble with it every year. So please make sure it is on a source like YouTube or Google Drive or Dropbox. We just run into trouble with that every year. All right. Another thing to do is maximize the quality of your audio. Clear audio is critical to a great video. If possible, be sure to record in a quiet room and use earbuds with a microphone. If you're not able to use an external microphone or earbuds, stay within 1.5 feet of the microphone on the recording device. Please remember, still follow all school and district level media policies. So if you are including photos or videos of students, please ensure that you have those media releases on filed away. As a best practice, all students featured in your video need that media release. Okay, to the chat one more time. True or false, video quality and composition will be a scored component of the video response. If you said false, you are correct. The scorers will be looking at the content of your video, not the audio quality. Okay. Now let's look at the optional scored components, the supporting documentation. Supporting documentation is permitted to provide additional evidence for references made in your extended responses. Some examples of supporting documentation can include student success data, project plans, parent or community communications materials. Please make sure that all supporting documentation adheres to your school and or district's privacy policies, like media releases. It is important to note that the application, including supporting documentation, will be redacted for identifying information to reduce potential unconscious bias. So to be aware, supporting documentation is completely optional, and choosing not to submit supporting documentation will not penalize the applicant in any way. If you choose to submit supporting documentation, it is limited to 5 pages maximum for Part 1 application. And when I say 5 pages, this is normal, legible, visual material. Please do not shrink it down to like high school cheat sheet, chemistry class cheat sheet, cross-hatching, so we can get all of it on there. Please, it is a 5-page minute maximum, and if you go over that, the rest of it will not be included in what will go to the scorers. Additionally, applicants should consider the following best practices when compiling supporting documentation. Directly connect supporting documentation to the written responses, but do not rely on supporting documentation to make your case. Supporting documentation should not be a substitute for high quality explanation in the narrative, nor stand alone as extraneous information. Effective supporting documentation should extend the reviewer's understanding of your written responses by directly connecting to aspects of the narrative where additional evidence, such as student data, may make your writing clearer. You can include notes in that supporting documentation too, to help tie to the narratives. Next, ensure each page of the supporting documentation demonstrates the principal and supervisor of the year criteria. In some cases, you may identify that the written response prompts do not permit you to share characteristics of your leadership or specific experiences that fully demonstrate your ability to serve as principal or supervisor of the year. Like the best practice above, effective supporting documentation can serve to expand your reviewer's understanding of your ability to meet the principal and supervisor of the year criteria. To ensure reviewers understand what they are reviewing and why it's important, be sure to provide notes with relevant information and context for any materials not directly addressed in the narrative. Okay, back to that chat. Why might you submit supporting documentation? Connecting to the narrative, giving context to the narrative, context on your role in the district, extend understanding. Just because it's in my brain recently, it's science fair season. Think of it like a science fair project. You never want just, it helps to have photos of the experiment or the model of the experiment in addition to just the written response. Okay. So you may be wondering how exactly the Part 1 application will be scored. So each written response question will be scored individually and will be assessed according to the degree to which the response adheres to standard grammar, spelling, and punctuation conventions. Go see your English teachers. They can proofread for you. Answers the question clearly and concisely. Provides a compelling narrative that speaks to the applicant's ability to serve as the Tennessee Principal or Supervisor of the Year. And then the video response question will be assessed according to the degree to which the response has the following desirable qualities. Delivery is made according to the instructions, so within the topic and the time limit. The candidate displays qualities of confidence, optimism, and sincerity. And then the message is well organized, easy to follow and understand, and relevant. So then, the entire application will be given a holistic score, including both the written response questions and the video response questions, as well as that supporting documentation if it's included in the application. The holistic score will be assigned based on the degree to which the applicant demonstrates the Tennessee Principal of the Year or Tennessee Supervisor of the Year criteria. Each application will be reviewed by 2 or 3 reviewers from across the state, and the top 3 scores in each region will be selected as region level semifinalists. All finalists will be notified of their application decision in April. I don't want to give you a specific date just because things happen. It will be about mid-April when I let you know. The Part 2 application will be shared at that time with the region level semifinalists. All right. question time. Does anybody have any questions? You can type it, or if you want to unmute and ask, you can. Yes. I need to update that. The district and school can be named in it because you also are putting yourself in the video. One of the ways that we avoid that bias and things like we would do if we redacted it all is that I have people not in your Grand Region score. So if you are in East Tennessee, no one in East Tennessee that lives or has worked in East Tennessee will score uh, your application. It will only be someone out of Middle or West, if that makes sense. We also work with the scorers, just, they make sure to say, oh, I know this person. And then I can swap out as well. Yeah.
Sorry, when you're writing your response, so you can add your school's name, or would you just use the acronyms? Like, where I am, my acronym would be CES. Would that be appropriate, or would you put the school name?
You can do either one. You really can do either one. Whatever is easier for you, it doesn't matter.
Okay. Yep. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Other questions? Is it typical to have student participation in the video responses? That is a great question. I have had them, I've seen them because I always watch them. I've seen it done a lot of different ways. I've seen principals include students in and districts include or supervisors include students in the videos. And then I've seen them not. I've seen them where they've included other, some teachers in the building or colleagues in like in the school building and then colleagues in the district office. You really have freedom to be as creative as you want to be to tell your story. I had, for instance, a few years ago, there was a principal that was the leader of his school was an outdoor school, and he began the video in waders in a creek, and then went to one of the outdoor classrooms. It was, you have free reign to be as creative as you would like with these videos. Typing. As we're writing on that question, I will say you are also free to use if you want. I've had districts or schools and districts use their school media classes. So if the high school has a media class, I've had some principals and supervisors use that group to help with the filming and editing. I've had them do, the district sometimes has a media person that's helped. So that's also okay. I've seen this done a whole lot of different ways. Again, it's a creative, you can be as creative as you want in order to tell your story. I see somebody typing a question. So. Okay. If it's a newspaper article as a supporting document, the school, you can put the school, we will probably redact the district just to narrow that down. Then I realize that is a Googleable, the word it is today a thing, but we will, naming the school is going to be fine. We probably would redact the district just to be safe. And then, no, you don't have to redact your name because, again, you're going to be talking about yourself in your video. So you can put your name in there. That's fine. Any other questions that I can help with? Hey, big thing. Yeah.
No, you go ahead. I'll jump in.
No,
later.
you go ahead. I was just.
So when we talk about like our broad philosophy on things, if we have been a principal in multiple buildings, is it okay to talk about our experience in other schools as well? Or do you want to specifically just focus on the school that we're currently leading?
You absolutely can talk about your broad experience in other schools as well, because that is part of your story and how you are where you are. Any other questions? Okay, so just some last few thoughts before we jump to the concluding pieces. Remember your video, share it, or put, set the settings where it can be viewed by the person with the link. Do not put it in your district's network because that is often blocked by firewalls, and we have to say, hey, we can't access this. Can you do it? It's a whole ordeal. And then, I had one other in the lost. So remember to do that. And then if you have any questions, always email. You can always email me. Okay. Some other resources. The website. It will have this webinar, the recording of this webinar up. The guidebooks should be up already. If they're not, I need to check on that. You also, I do have the weekly office hours on Mondays. It's from 3:30 to 4:30 Central Time. It is very informal. You just click in the link. I'm there. You can ask me a question. And once you're done, you can go. I'm not presenting anything. It's just a time to catch me as a human in person to ask questions. I will not, however, have office hours on Monday. It's federal holiday, so we will not be at work. Okay, last one in the chat because I know it's everybody's favorite thing to do. So as a result of this webinar, what is the next step you're going to take to prepare for the Tennessee Principal or the Supervisor of the Year process? Review your resources. Start writing or jotting down notes so you can start writing. Draft some people to video. I will tell you, kids love to do the videos. I will say they always get really excited. You can tell in their faces. Download the guide and the recording to this meeting. Yeah. Review resources, begin writing. Edit your questions, begin brainstorming for a video presentation. Okay. We are so excited to work with you on this. We have such excellent principals and supervisors in the state, just like you, and we hope that you will consider putting yourself forward to receive the celebration and elevation that you deserve. So thank you for all that you do each day for Tennessee students and teachers, and we look forward to celebrating your achievements as part of the Tennessee Principal and Supervisor of the Year. Again, my name is Sarah Brown. You can email me at sarah.brown@tn.gov. It is the most generic name in the world, so easy enough to find. It's Sarah with an H, .brown, like the color, at tn.gov. All right, I'm going to stop the recording.